Right, Buck Up Podcast, episode 12. I'm your host, Jacob Trainer. Today I have my girlfriend, Stacy, with me.
Hello.
First time on. I'm just going to do a recap. It's probably going to be a pretty lengthy recap of our trip to South Florida and all the details that kind of went into that. So, first thing I want to talk about was the reason for going. So, over the past few months, I've had like some health issues I've kind of been struggling with. Uh, and I'll break that down in like a later podcast. Plan on having my mom on to help me kind of talk about what was going on with that. But yeah, so I figured, be a good opportunity to get away from all that and go somewhere warm and soak up some sun, which we do not have here in Missouri. And at the time that I kind of hit like the breaking point with that, Stacy's spring break was also like what 3 weeks away or something like that. So it was kind of a last minute decision to I was like, hey, do you want to go to Florida? She's like, are you serious? Yep. But the big thing was I wanted to catch peacock bass since I started bass fishing at probably like, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old. So that's pretty much what we were going to go down there for. We wanted to stay close to the beach so that you can.
Yeah, so I can go enjoy the beach.
Yeah, do all the girl beach stuff.
White girls.
And I could hopefully get on some peacocks. So yeah, it was about an 18 and a half hour drive. That week I took off Saturday and Sunday from work. So we left Saturday morning when I got off of work at like, I think we were packed up and everything by probably 6:30, but didn't get to leave till 7:30 because why?
I couldn't find my wallet.
So we strung everything out, tore the car and the house apart, looking for that.
Yeah, didn't find it.
Didn't find it, no. Which the only thing in her wallet was her ID. So.
And my debit card.
Your debit card?
Mm-hmm.
I thought you had your debit card.
On my phone.
Oh, well, okay, I guess that's kind of important too. Yeah, so we left that morning, and I really wish I would have taken Friday off as well. So I'll just mention like one of the things I've been struggling with health-wise was like my sleep was like really irregular. And like that week I had done great with like keeping that on track. It was actually kind of the first full week that I'd been doing pretty well with that. But I was definitely dragging ass on the way down there. I felt like an absolute zombie. Yeah, somewhere in Tennessee, we stopped for Stacy's first Waffle House experience.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Wanted to go back again.
Yeah. So with like the way we eat or whatever our diet, it's like really hard to pick somewhere to eat because you don't know what they're putting in it or on it or any of that. And usually they mix a bunch of other crap in with like something that we could eat. So it just like cost wise doesn't really make sense a lot of times. But there's like a million waffle. Like we had discovered that from heading down to the taxidermist in Tennessee that like there's like a million Waffle Houses when you start heading south. They're like pretty much at every exit. So I was like, I think this, there's like Cracker Barrel and Denny's, stuff like that. But I told her, I'm like, Waffle House will be the tippy top of the A list. Like this, some supreme dining. So yeah, obviously she loved it or whatever and insisted on us making more trips there. We couldn't check in till 3 on Sunday. So kind of like took our time getting down there and hit some traffic on the way as well. Especially through Atlanta. Atlanta, no matter what time you go through there, there's always going to be traffic. But yeah, we got there real early in the morning and kind of got to watch the sunrise on the beach, which is pretty cool because I don't know about you. I've never done that.
No.
Usually I don't get out to the beach till like 10 or later. So, because I'm not real prone on waking up early on a vacation.
Yeah, try to sleep in.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of saw that or whatever, walked around the beach a little bit, and then we're like, well, what else are we gonna do? So Stacy was like, well, I guess we might as well go fishing. So I pulled up like the closest park to us. I don't really remember the name of it, but if I did, I wouldn't really recommend it for fishing. Well, I guess like right away you caught uh, like a smaller largemouth
Mhm.
on a paddle tail, which is pretty cool because I don't think you'd ever used one of those before either. I mean, that's pretty much like a real common bait for down there. Um, so I kind of insisted on her like using that. But I'm gonna pull up a picture of your bass real quick. Is that on it? Share. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, just like a small 1 pound largemouth with like some weird warts or
Yeah.
whatever it had growing on it.
Just Florida things.
Yeah, well, judging by the lake that it came out of, I'm not, who knows what the hell was
Yeah.
being dumped in that lake. It was like a lake where, so the park was like kind of like it kind of had a little bit of everything. It was like a water park mixed with like skiing. You could fish there.
Bring your bike there.
Yeah, there were 9 million cyclists and mountain bikers. Yeah, so we kind of just went like we walked about halfway down on the first lake that you can see from the parking lot there, and like first couple casts you caught that largemouth, and then we started to see like a lot of like just smaller fish. Like I assume they were cichlids. I think we saw like one peacock just kind of swimming around the bank. So we started doing some sight fishing and trying to pull a couple of them out of there. Um, yeah, then we had like a woman walk up to us, and what was her accent? Like I don't know if it was British or Australian.
Yeah.
It was
Mhm.
I don't know what it was, and she had like her son there with her or something, right?
I just remember her dogs.
Or dogs. Maybe that's what she was talking about then. I don't know. But she insisted on us like going down to this lake in the back to fish. It was like another giant lake to fish back there. She said that's where everyone catches all the giant fish, and you're only going to find like the small fish in this lake. Um, so yeah, we're like, yeah, okay, whatever. We like kept casting whatever. And she like brought it up like 3 more times,
Yeah.
like insisting on us go back. So we're like, whatever. We picked up our stuff and made. That was a long ass walk. It was
Yeah,
like
it was
2 mile walk or something.
There's like no access
Yeah,
to this fucking lake.
absolutely no access. So we didn't even get to make a cast at it. We ended up making, so the lakes were like, there was like a narrow path going in between them. Well, we fished like the backside of the one lake we'd been fishing. And like I had a mountain biker like put his hands on me and tell me to get off his path and all that. It was not a good start to the trip. I was pissed, and luckily I didn't say anything to him, but it was not a good start that way. Not a good first impression of the people of Florida. Um, yeah. So then we were like, okay, well, whatever, we can't fish this lake. So we started walking back to fish like the same spot where we had seen all those fish, or whatever. And we start making some casts or whatever. And then this dude sitting like way up on the uh, water skiing like tower thing gets on his megaphone. He's like, "You all can't be fishing here." He's like, "You can fish any other lake but this one." I'm like, "Shit, first lake we went to, I'm already getting kicked out." So at least we pulled a fish out of it though.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the bright side. But yeah, so we're like, okay, crap, where are we gonna go next? Well, I had like a million canals, like the boat ramps for canals, marked on my phone. So I just started going through one by one, all the ones that were closest to each other. I kind of had it all mapped out beforehand. So I wasn't running all over back and forth. I believe it was like the first one we went to. We or she spotted a pair of Mayan cichlids sitting like right off the edge of the water, maybe 10 inches off the bank. And she like begged me to put a crappie jig on because I'd taught her like a couple years ago, like with bluegill and stuff. I think it was at Bush Wildlife that you can kind of just like dangle the crappie jig over them and kind of just like yo-yo them out. Like you're not even really casting or setting the hook. You're kind of just like old school cane pulling them out. So she did that, and I got tied on. I think you were probably like really tired still from the drive and everything, so you kept getting it snagged in the rocks. And she wanted me to like go down there and get it out or whatever. And I was like, if you just let me break it off real quick, I can tie another one on super fast, and then I can get you right back in on this fish, because they were both still swimming around. I don't know if they're on a bed or what. It's kind of what it seemed like, but I don't really know what time of year they spawn or anything. So I got it back on or whatever, and she kept getting it hung up with freaking rocks. She's like, okay, whatever, here, you try. Well, I put it in there. I just got super aggressive with it. I started like bouncing it off all the rocks and splashing around the water. And I don't know if it was the male or not, but it really pissed him off. And so he started following her around or whatever. And he'd like short strike it a couple times. I was like, okay, whatever. He put it all the way in his mouth one time. I was like, oh my gosh. And so like the same time I went to lift up on it, he just spit it back out. So I threw it back in there and did the same thing again, just started being real aggressive with it. And he like actually grabbed onto it that time. And I just, like I said, yo-yoed him straight out of the water. And we were up on some like boulders where I was like dangling this from. So he couldn't even like really see me either, because I was so high up. And like I had the sun in my face, so there wasn't like a shadow or anything. So yeah, we're way up there or whatever. And I'd kind of stepped down onto like some lower boulders, whatever, and she was up like higher on the bank. And so I basically just like lifted him out of the water and like put him like right by her. I thought that was kind of funny, but yeah, that was our first new species, I guess, in Florida. It was a mine cichlid. So it was pretty cool or whatever. I guess I can pull a picture up of that real quick. Super cool colored fish. I don't know if it's on there or not. There we go. But yeah, this, which I'll get into this like in a little bit later with some of the other fish too, but like it was just so neat how a lot of the fish down there, like even though they're the same species, they come in like a variety of colors. Yeah, so anyways, we continued to hop around the rest of the day and didn't really have much luck. But actually, before we left there, I almost missed this. It's really important. We met. So the reason we kind of stopped fishing was a boat came flying in. We're like, okay, it's kind of going to stir up the water, or whatever, so we can just go find a new spot. So we got all packed up, whatever. That guy loaded his boat up. While I'm on my phone looking at GPS, whatever, trying to pull up the next spot. And Stacy's like, hey, roll down your window. That guy wants to talk to you. I was like, okay, whatever. So I rolled down my window, and I met this guy that actually has a pretty cool YouTube. It's called SoFlo Outdoors. And he's SoFlo Waterfowlers on Instagram, I believe. I'll link all his stuff in the YouTube description of this podcast. Super cool guy, though. His name's Billy. And he was just kind of like, asked us if we had any luck or whatever. And told us like we're in the right area for a lot of good fish. Hooked us up with one of his spots, which unfortunately we had a hard time. It was kind of like the moral, or not the moral, but like the struggle of this entire trip was like finding access. Like there's water everywhere, but it's super hard to get into a lot of spots. You got a lot of no fishing signs, stuff like that. So that was kind of our first experience with like, crap, how do we get into these places? So yeah, met Billy or whatever. And since we didn't have any luck accessing that spot he gave us, we just continued to hop around to the canals. Didn't really have any luck. So we ended up spending the evening on the beach, relaxing, which is nice. It was pretty much kind of cold, like every evening.
Yeah.
Like it was not real. It was super windy. Mm-hmm. So that wind coming off the water was pretty chilly. But yeah, so I decided I wanted to try something different the next day though. So I found this, I guess it's kind of like a conservation area, or I don't know what they call it, like a wildlife area or something like that. But right on, so pretty much how like Southern Florida works is you've got like this big U shape kind of, and the U shape is all the Everglades, whatever. And then like right to the right of the Everglades, like in the area we were at, is like all your cities or whatever. And there's basically like a barrier between all the cities in the Everglades. So we went out like on the outskirts of town or whatever. And just, I wanted to get like out away from people. was kind of my goal. Like, because obviously the more people around, like the more issues you run into with access and also like the pressure that have been put on the fish in these high populated areas. So yeah, it was kind of like a levee type construction is what I would call it. Like main road, gravel road going way up top. And then down a giant hill, you got a canal on one side and same thing on the other side, you got a canal. And as soon as we pulled up there, they were like, what were they? Teenagers probably?
Yeah, like my age.
Okay, so like older teenagers. Fishing, there was a bridge that went over top one of the canals. I don't know. They were fishing from the side of it then. They ended up hopping up on the bridge too. And they just had shiners they were throwing out there with bobbers. But like literally right as soon as we get to this spot, there's one of these kids holding like, what was it, probably a 4-pound largemouth. And it's just completely black. I mean, it's a true like Florida swamp bass. Like it was awesome. And I rolled down my window or whatever. I'm like, man, that's an awesome fish. He's like, yeah, it's pretty cool or whatever. So we go and park, whatever. We're super stoked to get in there. So we kind of fished like down a little bit from them, so we weren't being pole buzzards, with all our artificial stuff, which, at that point I was kind of like, man, I kind of wish we used some live bait or whatever, because that makes it a lot easier. But that's just that's not something I do a lot, like hardly ever, just because it's a kind of a pain in the ass, like where we're from. But so yeah, we're throwing that stuff around. I got hit by a gar a couple times, which I was really hoping to catch. And I told her, I'm like, Florida is probably the only place I would ever want to catch a gar. Like, I catch a gar in Missouri, I'm like holding the hook with pliers, so just trying to like shake it off on the bank and kill it. But they got like a spotted gar, and I think they have like actually their own gar, like a Florida gar or something down there too. But they've just got like way cooler patterns and colors on them. So I wouldn't have minded pulling one of them out either. But all of our stuff, like nothing I was using had treble hooks. So it's kind of hard to get that in a gar's mouth just because it's like needle nose basically. So yeah, we walked the edge of that canal and fish, just walk a little bit, cast, walk a little bit, cast. And that was pretty taxing. It was a lot of walking. The sun was beating down. It was like the middle of the day because we took pictures we took pictures the next day. So we were there about noon, I would say, after eating breakfast and everything. So yeah, we did that a little bit. Stacy ended up jigging another cichlid out. I don't know if were you side casting that or was it blind?
Side.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was side casting.
Which like that canal, you could walk up and see like some gar and some cichlids and stuff like that. I actually saw right down from where those kids caught their bass. I had like a 3-pound bass swim literally as close as it could have got on the edge of the water right in front of me. And I'm motioning, Stacy's on the other side of the canal. She walked across the bridge. I'm motioning like big bass right here, cast, because I was still tying on. But ended up swimming away.
The water down there is like really, really, really clear. Like you just
it's completely different to anything we're used to. Like clear water here is like a green color basically, like stained
not
water.
Really
and yeah, we get so much runoff in all the spots we fish that it's muddy most of the time. When it is clear, it's green. Theirs is like, it's almost like black when you look at it. Like you can just see right through it to the vegetation on the bottom. It's a real dark vegetation. I'll pull up your picture of the cichlid here real quick too. So yeah, like see how much different that one is compared to the one I caught.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm holding her fish because she wouldn't hold the damn thing because it has little small teeth. Like it's just like a bluegill. You just fan its spikes down and just hold it like a fly fisherman would. Yeah. But anyways, kept casting or whatever, working our way down, and then I had a chartreuse and white chatterbait with a paddle tail on the back. I think it was just a white paddle tail. And I was like, okay, I'm really going to start like hurling this thing. So I was just casting all the way across. I was finding like open spots where I could cast all the way across and hit the edge of the bank on the other side. Well, I don't know if it was the first time I did it, but it was one of the first times I did it. As soon as it hit the water, just something thrashed right out of the water and grabbed the bait. It was awesome, like a giant top water explosion. And I'm just screaming or whatever. I'm fighting this thing super hard. And I'm, hooping and hollering like I always do when I hook into something. And I'm fighting this thing all the way across the canal, which, granted isn't really that far, but pulling a heavy fish that far, is
put you to work.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I get up to the edge or whatever, and it's like rolling or whatever, which is real common to snakehead. And sure enough, I get up on the bank, and it's a decent snakehead. It wasn't a giant. Same thing with him, just super, super dark color. I think everything that we saw in that canal had just like a much darker color. I don't know if it's because of the water color or how much sunlight they get, or vegetation, nutrition that's in there. I don't know, but it was like almost a black snakehead. Like snakeheads have like rings and like dots on them. You could hardly even see the pattern on him because he was that dark. I'll pull the picture of him up here real quick. So yeah, it's probably, I don't know, 2.5 feet long or so, but just like a solid black color. And you can see like in the middle there, he's got some markings, but you can hardly even make them out. And then the ring on his tail just like barely shows up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was pretty much all the luck we ended up having doing that there. I was pretty satisfied that day. We were both exhausted from the heat beating down on us. Stacy got extremely sunburned. So we kind of called it early that day around like, what was it, like 3:00, 3:30, something like that. We're like, let's just go chill out on the beach and then we can figure out a game plan for tomorrow. So yeah, we went and relaxed on the beach that evening and decided we were going to do pictures the next morning, like pictures on the beach. Very typical.
Yeah.
Family-ish pictures on the beach, couples pictures. Which is something I haven't mentioned. I don't know that I've really mentioned much about you on any of the podcast yet. So you haven't really wanted to be a part of this, but Stacy's a really talented photographer and like picture editor. So all the pictures were awesome. They turned out great. I actually have those on here too to share some of your work. Subtle plug. What's your Instagram for your photography?
Stacy Moriel Photography.
So yeah, here's like a picture of us. Turned out awesome. Like even I was impressed because no one can usually take pictures on the beach in the sun, and you made them turn out really good. And it was windy as shit.
Oh yeah.
That's something we battled the entire trip, whether it was fishing or taking pictures or whatever, was the wind. Yeah, I think the pictures turned out really good. Yeah. You still haven't sent me like everything.
Oh no.
I think there's another one too. Oh yeah, the one you took of me, which is awesome. It's now my profile picture on, I think it's Instagram and Facebook. I could be wrong. Yeah, real professional buck hut photo there. Looks like a real entrepreneur there. So yeah, pictures turned out great. We got done, I don't know, probably around noon or 1 or so. Did we eat before we went out there? Or
No,
I think we ate after. So I made food wherever. Then we were gonna head out fishing. So that afternoon we kind of didn't really like the vibe of the sketchy Everglades. I also forgot to mention we saw small alligators there.
Oh yeah.
Luckily no snakes or anything. We saw some
was that one snake?
Oh yeah, people, when we were leaving, this dude up on top of the levee, because like there was a gate that kind of blocked it off so he couldn't drive on it. He pulled his car right up to the gate and he was like, did y'all see any pythons down there? And we're like, fuck no, like I don't want anything to do with those damn things. Like we saw some alligators, some small alligators, didn't really want to be around them either. But I guess he was, I don't know, wanting to find some snakes for some reason. I don't know, take pictures or what. I was like, okay, weird guy. Yeah. So yeah, anyways, that vibe, she didn't really like the whole, and we were walking through tall grass and stuff. I didn't know what bugs were around or whatever, because like, I'm usually prone in Missouri to getting chiggers everywhere I walk. So Yeah, that was just a little too extreme for her, I think. It was right up my alley, and it was super fast paced, which you also weren't really used to.
Yeah, no.
I'm like you wanted to like keep fishing a spot. I'm like 5 to 10 casts, and I'll work the bank, or whatever, and we're moving. And yeah, we argued a little bit over that, but it's okay. We still like each other sometimes.
Yeah, I guess.
So, anyways, I decided we are gonna try another like park type setting. So we ended up going to Markham Park, which is like this huge, I think it's almost 700-acre park that like the canals run through or whatever, and it kind of turns into like their definition of lake around that area is much different than our definition here. Like you'd call that like a stream here, but they called it a lake. So, anyways, like usual, you were what, 5 casts in, and you're hooked up, and I just hear this thing. I'm right next to her, peel and drag. And I'm like, holy shit, you hooked into something big.
Yeah.
So I drop all my stuff. I'm running over there. And of course, you've never fought anything like you've never had anything peel your drag like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to like show her like how to kind of adjust the drag a little bit, because it was like way too loose. The thing was just gone with it. So I'm like sticking my hand in there trying to adjust it. She's still just cranking on the thing. It's not going anywhere. So my fingers, like, it's a spinning rod. My fingers like getting caught in the freaking spinning portion of it. Ow! Just stop reeling for a second. So I'd like make a micro adjustment on it. And she'd start hammering away again. I'd like try and like put my hand right back in there, and she didn't see my hand. So she's smacking my finger again. I'm like, just let me freaking do this. So we're fighting this fish together, and she gets it like right up to the bank. It's doing the snakehead roll thing. So I'm like, oh, cool. Like it's another decent snakehead. Well, then she'd get it right up to the bank, and the thing started running back out again. And so she's like trying to like do the whole, like, I don't know if it's children that do this or what, but I've seen it several times before. You do like the back pedal high knee run, just trying to drag the thing up onto the bank.
I just got excited.
And I'm like, just like hold it still and I'll go grab him. Like he's right there at the edge of the bank. But she insisted on running a freaking
I did not
40-meter dash backwards. So thing came up on the bank or whatever. And I'm like, man, this is a giant snakehead. And it looked way different. I almost didn't recognize it at first, because it looked way different than the one I had caught the day before. Of course, she was like not real satisfied with it because she wanted to catch a peacock. But I'm like, you need to be appreciative of this fish, because it's like an absolute monster. So yeah, super light colored fish. You can actually see like the markings in it and stuff, unlike the one I caught. Whereas mine was like pretty much black. That one's like a slate colored gray. So yeah, like I said before, just super neat in Florida how every body of water is different for like the color of the fish, or I guess even in the same bodies of water, the color of fish just differ that much. She almost didn't want to take a picture with it. I'm like, this is a monster. Like, I think the state record for snakeheads like 10 pounds. That thing was 6 or 7 probably. And it was good size. You can see the belly sagging on it. But anyways, I like had to like convince her like it's not gonna hurt her or whatever. It's just really slimy, so you're gonna have to put a good grip on it. I basically told her to do like the split finger grip like a catfish. So when I got him up on the bank, I put him on his back or whatever, so she could just grab straight onto him and roll him over. I'm like, okay, just make sure you're ready as soon as you pull them up, because like they like to squirm a lot. Like everything there's slimy. It doesn't matter what kind of fish you pull out. So the day before, like I had dropped my snakehead too, just because everything's so hard to hold on to. So I told her like, be ready for the picture as soon as you get them up. So the picture turned out great. You still had your makeup on from the pictures and everything. So yeah, picture turned out awesome. But yeah, so after that, we kept fishing a little bit, and I tried a couple other spots that didn't really work out. A couple of them were no access. A couple of them just didn't have any bites or anything. And, while these catches were like awesome and everything, I was still feeling, we had like 1 day left. So I was feeling kind of defeated when it came to like accomplishing the whole peacock mission. And that was probably very obvious. So I decided I'm going to go back where I met Billy and fish the other side of that canal. And I walked pretty much the entire length of that canal. just casting along the bank, across it, trying everything. Well, Stacy was worn out at that point. It got pretty late that evening, probably around 6:30 or so. So I told her, I'm gonna walk down to this dock and get parallel with it, make some casts, and then that's as far as I'm walking. We can call it for a day. So I walk all the way down there. It's probably 100 yards or so from where I told her that, and get right to the dock. I might have made one cast beforehand. I make one cast straight in line with the dock, and sure enough, I hook into a fish. So I'm fighting it or whatever. And there's a iguana on this boulder sitting right where I'd cast pretty much. He jumps in the water as soon as I set the hook. It scared the shit out of him. And so I'm fighting this fish, whatever. I get it all the way up to the bank. It's a freaking peacock bass, and it comes off right at the bank. And I'm like, I felt defeated before, and I was just like 10x what I was feeling for. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, and she's like, cast again or whatever. I'm like, no, like I said I was done here. I'm gonna be done. So yeah, that felt awful. I told her, I'm like, this is not working out at all. So we can just do whatever you want to do tomorrow. Like I don't need to fish. I've caught some cool stuff here and got the experience or whatever. But you were still insisting on catching a peacock.
Yeah.
So kind of like explain like when you like this group or whatever, like when you got into it or whatever, and like what it was.
So I like just looked up like this just peacock fishing, and this group popped up on Facebook, and they accepted my request.
What's it called?
It's called Peacock Bass, South Florida.
And it's got 20,000 members, so a lot of people in it.
Yeah, and they accepted my like request pretty quickly. Like yours hasn't even been accepted.
No, I put into it the same day. She was telling me about it. She actually got into it without even telling me about it. So I was like, damn, I wish I would have known.
And then
I
just posted like this picture of me, my snakehead, and just was like, hey, we're looking for a guide, kind of last minute. And then, I had some comments, but like no one was able to do it. And then Mike.
Yep, Mike.
Commented.
Mike commented. Mike has a company called Lake Ida Fishing Charters, and he said I'd be able to do an afternoon session tomorrow.
Really perfect.
And it was like what 10:30 at night or something. I'm like,
poor man.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, man, I feel like, kind of bad or whatever. But I was like, we're in or whatever. Just I don't even care the details. Just take us out tomorrow, basically. Don't care what it costs either. Like, so he said, call me in the morning or whatever. So I woke up like around 8 or 8:30 or so and just called him right away. He's like, yep, told me how much it costs, whatever, what it was going to look like. He said, normally he had bait ready or whatever. Since it was last minute, we'd have to go out and net some shad, which shouldn't take that long. And then, we'd get right to fishing or whatever. I was like, awesome. I was stoked. Sound like, I was kind of skeptical of doing the whole charter thing from the get-go. Like she had mentioned it way before we even left for the trip. I was like, just that environment, like that atmosphere, like when it's commercial fishing, it's just not really what I'm about. Yeah. Like, I just like to enjoy my time out there, limit, the people interaction. I'm not a real big people person. But that's not what we got with Mike at all. Like it was dream scenario, what I would have wanted. Super awesome personal guy. We had a lot in common. He still is, I guess, an endurance athlete. He's big on like the no debt thing, like same as we are. And obviously into fishing. So we had, plenty of stuff to talk about, whatever.
Oh yeah. Super cool guy.
Yeah. So got a really nice boat, beaver tail skiff. Took that out or whatever, going, through the canals, basically to get out into Lake Ida to go net some bait. So yeah, it was pretty cool. He let me drive the boat, just troll the boat while we were watching the graph. This was super cool for me too, because my only experience with electronics came from the $1 Million Bass Pro tournament I did with Travis. Other than that, I've pretty much used a depth finder and like a mediocre fish finder my entire life. So I at least had the knowledge of how to use it going into this from what Travis had taught me. So yeah, we're looking for these, bait schools we targeted for bass fishing could be, any size basically we're trying to cast into. So my comprehension of the size of the school we were looking for was completely different than what we would have used for bass fishing basically. So I'm seeing one on there. I'm like, hey, there's one. He's like, that's nothing like what we're looking for. And then finally, when one shows up, whatever, and it's like a bait school all the way across the screen, I'm like, holy shit. And so he'd cast into it or whatever. And, the first few casts we did, first of all, we were having a little bit of trouble locating some. He expected to take like 20 minutes or so. It probably took an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah.
Just, that's combined of getting out there, meeting him and everything, and getting all of our bait. But yeah, these schools were, I mean, to me, I don't know about to him, enormous, whatever. I'd, bumped the boat into reverse, whatever, about threw him overboard a couple times because his throttle was super smooth, unlike my old junky boat. And he throws net out there, and, he said most of the time he's doing it, he'll fill the freaking net. Like it takes him 1 or 2 casts to get, more than enough bait. He probably, had to throw it 4 or 5 times to get the bait we needed. So it wasn't too bad or whatever. And he kind of talked it down to like, oh, we, sorry, but we have to get some bait first. I thought it was awesome experience.
It was just cool.
It was just cool to learn. And that was awesome.
Him do it.
Yeah, like I wouldn't mind doing it again if, he didn't have the stuff ready next time we showed up. But anyways, we got all the bait we needed. Probably, what do you say? That was probably 150.
Yeah.
Shad. Just, they look pretty similar to the shad we have here. They just end up getting a lot bigger, I think, because they do a lot better in the warm weather down there. So then we headed back and kind of fished like cove around his house. Basically, he had a boat dock right there and a house and everything that we left from. So super convenient. But he knew, where all these fish were. So we fished one spot for, I don't know. Mike didn't want to spend, I really like this about him. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to spend too much time in one spot. He's like, if they're not fired up right here right away, we're going to find a different spot. And I'm all for that. So yeah, we fished one spot or whatever, made, I don't know, 5 casts or so, probably not even 10. He's like, all right, we're moving. We're going to go to my honey hole basically. And so we pull right up on this boat that he fishes all the time. And, sure as shit, like we freaking do every time, Stacy casts in there, and like second cast, she hooks into this like it was probably a 4-pound peacock. Yeah. 4 or 5 pound. I mean, this thing was enormous. Mike didn't talk about how big it was. He said that was a nice fish, but that thing was a nice peacock. And, it was so cool. He kind of chummed the water a little bit, throwing some shad in there, and then we'd cast into it. And you just see these bright colored fish just rolling up there, just attacking these shad. And so same thing, when she hooked into it, you saw that it kind of do a roll and surface. You just saw all these bright colors. And that's how I knew he was that big. I was like, holy crap. And almost instantly he came off.
Yeah, I was so hurt.
Yeah.
Still never recovered.
I wouldn't either. So, yeah, anyways, we got right back in there with some baits, whatever. And, I mean, almost immediately he started pulling out bass and cichlids. Yeah. And it was kind of funny. I really respected this. He was so dedicated to what we came there for. Yeah. That like as soon as we hooked into something that wasn't a peacock, he threw that damn thing back in the water. It was like she pulled out a 2.5 pound bass, and she's kind of holding up whatever. He's like, "Yeah, no, we'll take a picture when we get a peacock." Some cichlids that were like 10 inches long. Yeah. And he's like, "Nope, not a peacock, not a peacock." The video I posted on like YouTube and TikTok and everything is one of the cichlids I caught. It says like, "That's not a peacock bass." You can watch that and see how quick this dude's throwing it back in and getting us a new bait. Yeah, it was hilarious. So I told him, I'm like, "Hey man, where we're from, like a 4 or a 5 is a monster bass." So, we kind of want to take a picture with one of those, but otherwise, yeah, you can just throw them back. So that's what happened. She caught way more fish than me. A bunch of bass and cichlids and stuff, and he's just popping them off. Then I started, getting into bass and cichlids and stuff like that. Nothing giant, but the bass were super cool because they were the same way, completely different than the bass we have here. They're, super dark black color that pretty much runs all the way throughout their body. They're hardly even green. And then these cichlids, they came in a million different colors or whatever, and they were so big, the first couple ones we caught, I thought they were a peacock at first.
That's what I thought
the
too.
colorful fish, whatever. And then you pulled it out. I'm like, oh, I know what that is. But yeah, then you hooked into a peacock first, right?
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Knew that was going to happen. And what was it? Probably a pound or so,
Yeah.
a pound and a half. It wasn't giant.
No, but it was a peacock bass, so
Yeah.
pretty happy with it.
Was there anything like special that happened on that cast or anything from? No, it was just pretty plain Jane like the other ones. Yeah. But your trip was made at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine kind of was too. I just wanted one of us to catch a peacock bass. Like I didn't care who it was or how big it was. I didn't care if it was 10 inches. I would have been satisfied with it. But yeah, it's probably like a pound, pound and a half.
Do you have a picture of it?
Oh yeah, I do. I have lots of pictures. Yeah, there it is. Close that one. And yeah. So yeah, it was kind of like more of a yellow color, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't super green. And really the orange on the bottom side of it wasn't really that bright. It was really just like a light green, yellowish color. A small dot on its tail and some speckles up here. Real faint stripes. I mean, yeah, it was definitely cool. A lot different from what I ended up hooking into. So we left that spot or whatever and kind of went and tried a different one, gave that spot a break. He's like, all right, well, they'll be back in there or whatever. And so probably, I don't know, 2 casts in, I ended up hooking. So that boat we were fishing, Stacy made a couple bad casts and flung shad off of her hook straight into that boat. And I'm just watching this bird coming down. And he jumps in the boat or whatever. And I don't even get all the way through the sentence, but I'm saying like, hey, I guess he found your fish or whatever. And my drag just starts going, zzz, and I'm like, oh crap. And I was kind of to the right of the boat or whatever. And yeah, he's just running with it, whatever. So I'm fighting him, whatever. And of course, that's what I do a lot. Like when I got a good fight on a fish, I really loud at first, and I'm like dead silent, focused on like getting the fish and whatever. And so like, do you have one or whatever? I'm like, yeah, it's something good. He's peeling drag. And so I get it right up to the boat or whatever. And Mike's like, oh yeah, it's peacock. So he gets a net or whatever. And first try, swoops him right out perfectly. So I'll pull a picture of him real quick. But yeah, as soon as I saw that fish go in the net, I was so relieved. Because like I said, it's something I wanted to do for 10 years or so. So yeah, this is more Stacy's photography work. Their big camera and has a dope ass edit on it. Really making the colors pop on that. But yeah, you can see how mine, like those speckles, like run a lot longer to the body, and his stripes are a lot darker. The dot on his tail is a lot more prevalent. The orange is brighter. Like I don't know if it's something I go through as they get older, where just like they have more of that to them or not. I don't really know. But yeah, an awesome fish. It's probably, I don't know, 2.5 pounds or so.
Yeah.
It wasn't a giant, but it was a decent fish, and I was more than happy to catch it for my first one. I didn't really care, like I said, what size fish it was. So yeah, I got that on video too with the GoPro. As you can see, I'm wearing my chest strap. So that's on YouTube too. You can check that out. Just as my first peacock bass. But yeah, so both of us pretty much got what we came for. Whatever, we made a few casts in there. I think we caught a couple more bass.
Yeah.
In that spot. He's like, all right, since you all have done that, and we're the peacocks aren't super fired up today. Let's go out to the deep water and try and pull out a clown knife fish. And I was like, frick yeah, those are some cool ass looking fish. Which I thought they ran a lot more to the northern waters. I didn't really realize they were, Lake Ida area. But yeah, we tried for them for a little bit, didn't get any bites, whatever. She's like, all right, I guess we'll just, we ended up going further off to a different spot. And we were kind of just trying for anything there. Didn't have any luck. Something I struggled with a lot was like seeing my line. Like this is gonna sound really dumb as much as I fish, but I don't have polarized sunglasses. I've worn the same pair of sunglasses for like 8 years, and my eyes are super sensitive, so I've just kind of stuck with that lens. Fishing around Missouri, like I said, our water's not that clear anyways, so they've worked well for me spot fishing and stuff like that. in years past or whatever, and I can usually see down in the water very well. But we had a high wind that day, so the water's choppy as shit, and it's so bright that like the glare was just ridiculous. So, I might have done better personally if I were a little more on top of like my bait where it was at, following it and all that, because you would like when you're fishing by that boat, get peacocks and bass and stuff come up, swipe at it and miss. You could at least see that, know kind of where to position your bait and stuff like that. But anyways, that last spot didn't work. So we went back to the boat or whatever. And right away, like I think second cast, third cast again, I'm right back in there. I hooked into a peacock, probably about the size, it wasn't giant, probably about the size, might have been in between the size that she caught and the size of the one I caught. It was like an okay fish. And I got him right up to the boat or whatever. And just before Mike was able to grab him, he ended up getting off. But we at least knew peacocks were back in there. So, we fished the hell out of that a little more. I think we caught more bass, I think it was just bass at that point. We weren't even catching the cichlids anymore.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of largemouth. He's like, all right, well, I'm cleaning out the boat or whatever. Y'all can fish off my dock, use up the rest of these shad or whatever. So we did that, and we were actually getting hammered off his dock. Yeah. We weren't hooking up very well. Yeah, no. Hookup ratio kind of sucked, but we were hooking into some bass. I had him take a picture of just the last one I caught, right there off his dock with the old shad and a bobber. That was kind of fun. He's like, yeah, it might seem dorky with the bob or whatever. I'm like, no, man, like I fucked up and brought the wrong sunglasses. I can't see this damn thing. So that actually worked out pretty well. Yeah, you can see I'm red as shit there.
Very.
We both got fried. I never understood either. Mike had some, so it kind of made a lot more sense, especially when he had them and I didn't. And I never understood why anglers wore these like fingerless gloves. I don't know if it's for like grip or anything like that, like your hands getting wet. No, it's so your hands don't fucking fry out there in the sun. My hands, that's my ears, the top of my ears and my hands were where I got sunburnt the worst, just from holding them in the same spot. All my other stuff was moving, but those things were pretty much in the same spot the whole time. So that's where I ended up getting burnt the most. But yeah, super fun trip out with Mike. Definitely going to be back.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
go see Mike again.
Yeah, Mike's our boy now. Yeah, super awesome guy. I would recommend him to anyone, especially if you're like me and you might not catch the most fish in the world as you would with like some of these commercial guys or whatever, but you're going to enjoy the experience 10 times more. And he said it heats up a hell of a lot more for these peacocks and stuff at summertime. So
we'll be there.
Yeah, that's kind of when we're hoping to make another trip back. I don't know about you, but I definitely want to do this at least once a year. Just go down there. And that night after we got back with Mike, Billy from SoFlo Outdoors reached out to me too and was just asking like how long I was in town, if I'd gotten any peacocks yet. I told him like we were kind of like exhausted most of our options. We went with the charter that day and finally ended up getting on some. It's like, oh, that's awesome. If you come back, we'll have to do a collaboration, do some fishing together. I was like, hell yeah, man. Like, we're definitely going to be back. So hoping to do that with him too in the near future. So got a couple connections down there.
Oh, yeah.
Which is good, impressive for not ever going down there where you meet two people that you can fish with on the first trip down there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, check out Billy at SoFlo Outdoors and SoFlo Waterfowlers, I believe, on Instagram. Sorry if that's wrong. I'll put the links to all that in the YouTube description. Check out Mike at Lake Ida Fishing Charters. He's on Facebook. He's got a website, which I'll also link down in here. He's on Instagram. Great guy, great time. Made a dream come true for both of us. So super appreciative of him. And can't wait to get back out on the water with him. Check out Stacy's photography stuff, Stacy Morrell Photography on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Her phone number's on there. That's your preferred method of contacting me, right?
Yeah.
Try not to DM her. She won't see it. It's not because she's being a dick. She won't see it. Yeah, follow Buck Hut on, we got Facebook page, Facebook group. Buck.hut on Instagram, Buck.hut on TikTok, Buck Hut on YouTube, on pretty much all the podcast platforms. And also check out my buddy Dylan just started his podcast, Ludus Lifestyle Podcast. It's available on Anchor and Spotify. He's also got a Facebook group now too. I'll link that in the description as well. Any final comments? No. You do it again?
Yeah.
It's a good time?
Yeah, it was.
It's good for overall health too, which I'm going to get into it on that podcast with my mom about, it was kind of her recommendation as well for the stuff that's going on with my health to make that trip down there. And it benefited me in so many aspects of my life. So that's probably part of the reason as well, not only the success, but why I plan on going back down there in the future. So that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See ya.